Thank you. Great.
Marabu, 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 Ma'asecha Adonai. Marabu, 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 Ma'asecha Adonai. Kulam bechokma asita, Kulam bechokma asita. Kulam bechokma asita, Marabu, 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 Ma'asecha Adonai. Marabu, 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 Ma'asecha Adonai. Kulam bechokma asita, Kulam bechokma asita, Kulam bechokma asita, Marabu, 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 Ma'asecha Adonai. Marabu, 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 Ma'asecha Adonai.
Good evening and Shabbat Shalom. We are really delighted to be here with you all tonight. Those who are here in person with us in the Mishkan, those who are joining us via the live stream. We're so happy to have you here. For those I haven't met yet, my name is Rabbi Alexandra Stein. I'm delighted to be here. This is Cantor Rhodes, who needs no introduction.
You never know.
But we're
Great
both
to see everybody.
We're both really happy to be celebrating Shabbat with you this evening. In theory, we were thinking we might also set up seats outside because the sound pipes out. It's kind of hot, but if you wanted to visit it, know that you're warmly invited.
And be in the rain, potentially.
Right, hot and rainy, but we are going to continue with the words of Hine Matov, how good it is to be together.
And on this special Shabbat, we thought we would try something new with these words. And instead of the word achim, which means brothers, we thought we'd be a little bit more inclusive and use the word kulanu, which means everybody, because this is a room full of so many different identities of people, and we're all welcome and wonderful to be together in those moments and free to be ourselves. So we join together. Fitting in the word kulanu takes a little bit of a reset, but we're going to do it. I'm mostly telling myself that. Hine matov umanayim shevet kulanu gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet kulanu gam yachad. Let's try it one more time. Hine matov umanayim shevet kulanu gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet kulanu gam yachad. How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine matov, umanayim shevet kulanu gam yachad. Hine matov, umanayim shevet kulanu gam yachad. Shevet kulanu gam yachad. Shabbat. So happy it's Shabbat, and I'm so glad we're welcoming in Shabbat in this beautiful, small, intimate sanctuary, our Mishkan, Really, I feel the presence of the Holy One here as we join together, seeing faces I have seen recently, some faces I haven't seen in a long time, some people home from many, I'm just looking at you, what's happening to you? It's just so wonderful to be together. So I invite you all to turn to somebody, perhaps a new face or one whom you know, and say Shabbat Shalom, greet someone, and get to know them.
Yeah. Should we, I spoke to people about the temperature. I don't think it worked. Should we tell somebody?
Temp's a bit hot.
It's a bit hot. I wonder if we can make it a bit cooler.
Yeah, thanks.
It's my honor to invite up now Wendy Cohen, who's going to light our Shabbat candles. Wendy is here and has done many things in the congregation, but in particular tonight is representing our land care committee and all the hard work you are doing, Wendy, to keep our grounds in a beautiful state and also to keep them in our greening efforts. So you can pick up that mic first, and it should be good to go. And we're joining in the candle blessing on page 121. Show me hold the book.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you, Wendy. And
Having welcomed in Shabbat with the lighting of the candles, we turn now to L'chadodi, imagining a redeemed world on Shabbat. We'll be singing verses 1, 2, and 9.
let's do it.
And we invite you to rise and face the door or a door when we get to verse 9, maybe these doors, to welcome in the presence of Shabbat. Page 138.
L'chadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela boi v'shalom ateret bala gam besimcha u'besola tochem ulei am segula boi chala lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela.
We stay standing for the Baruch Hu on page 146.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Barechu et Adonai hamevorach. Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed. I'd actually like to invite people to sit, please. We're doing something a little bit different tonight in this moment in our prayer service when we recognize the beauty of the world around us through the prayer Ahavat Olam, and also the majesty of the turning of the seasons and day into night with Ma'ariv Aravim. We take a moment for a special blessing for our new community native garden, which is in Central Park in the middle of our parking lot. I invite you to take a gander at its beauty after services this evening. We have a special blessing and some remarks from those who work so very hard to make this garden a reality. So it's my honor to call up Joan, Michael, and Geraldine, who will share some words and reflections, and then we'll call up others for the blessing when they finish their remarks. So come on up, Joan, Michael Raisin, and Geraldine Levy.
Geraldine should go first.
It's good I brought this. Good evening. Shabbat Shalom. I've been a member of Temple Rodef Shalom for over 20 years. It's really a wonderful congregation. This is a really great addition. As a forester and landscape designer, I especially appreciate the woods that embrace TRS and the views of the towering trees as seen from the sanctuary and here as well. The forests are really an inspiration. They remind us of our connections to and our dependence on a healthy planet. When I was invited to last winter's TRS Sustainability Summit, I was excited about the opportunity to promote land care and the chance to help to restore the forests on and adjacent to our property. We can do this by removing invasive plants, addressing stormwater problems, and promoting sustainable landscape practices, including the planting of Northern Virginia native species. It's exciting to have our new sampler of native plants out in our and here in Central Park. They enhance biodiversity and important ecosystem services like pollination, and they serve really as an inspiration for all of us, you know, for our gardens and the landscapes at home. Partnering with Joan and our landscape team, a number of people are here, has really been a delight. And I'm really grateful to be able to celebrate here tonight with everyone. Thanks. Yeah.
You have your mask here. Take my glasses to take off my mask. Okay. People for hundreds of years have been moving plants and animals from one place to another, to the king's menagerie and to the collection of plants. Many plants that have been moved from one place to another have become invasive because they lack natural enemies in their new locations. There's been so many imported species that they now seem native to us. When I first moved here, and my son had moved here before me, I looked at some trees and I said, "What are those?" He said, "Those are crepe myrtles. They're all over here." Well, crepe myrtles are from India. Other examples of plants that are not from here: roses, most azaleas, the peony, the forsythia, the privet hedge, and of course the Japanese maple. The earthworm was even brought here from Europe as part of ballast in ships. They would only go one way, and they would carry earth as ballast. And now the earthworms are causing negative effects in northern forests in places like Minnesota and Montana, and they're now calling them invasive there, and in spite of the fact that gardeners like them. So gardeners have routinely planted things because they thought they were beautiful. They've replaced whole swaths of the landscape with lawns and with these select non-native plants like roses. And in doing so, they have been completely unaware of the havoc that this causes. Local insects and birds and wildlife depend upon native plants. It's because plants are at the bottom of the food chain. They manufacture carbohydrates from sunlight and water, and anything that eats something that eventually has eaten a plant. The result of all of this work, of all of these very busy gardeners, has been that insects have declined 75% in the last 50 years. Now, I might be very happy about this when I'm outside and all of these gnats are swarming around my head. But we've lost a lot of pollinators, moths, caterpillars, dragonflies, etc., that we need. Because, for example, we've lost all the songbirds from urban and suburban landscapes. It's because they need to feed their young on specific caterpillars and insects. And those specific caterpillars and insects, in turn, need to eat specific native plants because they have developed a symbiotic relationship for thousands of years. So the plants don't want to be eaten. They generate chemicals. The chemicals, then the specific caterpillars and insects will specialize in just eating one plant whose chemical they've learned how to digest and won't harm them. So there's actually a whole movement now which says that if everyone starts planting native plants, we can bring nature back, and we can bring back birds that have gone to the farther and farther away and back to here. So I'm the one who actually proposed planting this native plant garden that we now have in Central Park as a demonstration garden so that everybody can see how beautiful native plants are and what you can plant and stuff like that. So for me, this garden has been an act of tikkun olam.
Thank you, Joan. I really want to compliment Joan for doing the lion's share of the work. She selected the plants, she got the plot laid out. She had the grass, it was hard grass, and we had a flood problem, and it was just terrible. And Joan and a lot of volunteers, we showed up one April morning. It was cold. The land had been prepared, and we dug the holes, and we planted plants, and I was part of the team. There was a lot of other people besides me, but I want a representative here of the team. It takes a real village to make a garden grow. And my wife and I have been members of the temple since the 80s. Our 4 children were all bat mitzvahed here. I worked in Arlington for the Environment and Energy Conservation Commission, a volunteer position, for over 10 years. And I'm very happy to be here, part of this, this dedication, because it's quite an event. It's, like Joan said, it's repairing the world. I'd also like to bring out climate change and a little ethic from our sages. He said, this is Rabbi Tarfon, he said, it's not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you to desist from it. So I feel it's our responsibility, and the future generations are going to look on what our forefathers did to help climate change. And so I feel it's our responsibility to begin to address, as Joan so eloquently stated, to begin the work on climate change and help the earth. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. We're now going to invite back up the 3 folks we just heard from, as well as Debbie Weiner, Lisa Mackham, and Wendy Cohen. I apologize if I just mispronounced anyone's last name. And we'll invite the 6 of you who are part of a larger team that's really done a ton of work on this garden to please read a blessing of dedication for the garden.
Come on up, everybody. If everyone can share, that'd be great.
Yeah.
There's 2 copies.
There's 2 copies, and your names are attached to a short paragraph.
Do you want us to unmask or?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Judaism is a religion in time. Sunset, sunrise, sunset, creation, revelation. Everything turns on sun and the moon.
Judaism is a religion of the earth. We honor trees and wind and dew and rain. We pray in rooms with windows so we can always see the light. Geraldine.
The Torah teaches in one of its stories, imagining the beginning of space and time, that the first human being was placed in a garden to till and to tend it.
We are keepers of the earth. We do not own it, but we are entrusted with its stewardship and protection.
Today we give thanks for our native garden and for the people who have committed to its stewardship, planning and planting, tilling and tending.
May our garden connect us to the earth and to the cycles of the sun and the moon, the winds and the rain and the dew. In this season and in every season, may it flourish and may we flourish.
Thank you. Oh, everybody. Yeah. Sorry.
Blessed are you,
Adonai, our God, who has formed humanity with wisdom, and who has given us the task of being stewards of the earth.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rabbi Stein, for compiling that beautiful blessing.
From other blessings.
Compiling.
Yeah.
And we continue on page 152 with the words of Shema. I invite you, if you feel comfortable, to please rise. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Please be seated. We join together on page 154 as we chant Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'beitecha u'lechtecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Page 157, we join at the top. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
moment, we will continue with the Amidah, which starts on page 164. What we'll be doing tonight is we will be chanting together the first three blessings of the Amidah. So the Avot v'Imachot, the Geburot, and the Kedusha. And then we're going to move into a silent place. And we'll invite you to either read through the blessings of the Amidah at your own pace, to hold the prayers of your heart, to walk and look at the trees outside for a moment and experience the prayer that is nature and our world. And then we'll be joining together towards the end of the blessing, which is the part of our prayer book that's labeled Tefilat Halev in the little blue words. So a few prayers later, or a little earlier, depending on which song we end with, but we'll get there. So please rise if you are able on page 164. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Hasdei Avot v'Imachot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol, Atah Rav le'Hoshia, Morid hatah. Mechalkel hayim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'rofei holim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Milchamocha ba'al geburot, Umido melach, Melech memit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. We continue silently sitting or standing as you're comfortable.
Take a moment now in our tefillah and our prayer to think of those in our community in need of healing, those within our families, in our friend groups, in Temple Road of Shalom, beyond these walls, in our country and in our world. We think of those experiencing violence, experiencing pain or loss, and we send this prayer of healing, of refuah shlema, of wholeness to them in this moment. Tonight, our congregation is thinking of Alon ben Barbara, Hannah Esther Bat Crandall, Maria Campo, Richard Dunhoff, Barbara Green, James Green, David Harrison, Sarah Jacobs, Rebecca Cupper, and Diane Priest. And I invite you to share a name or names with us, too, at this moment. Continue with our prayer, the Misha Berach, our prayer for healing, which you can find on page 371 or in your programs. Misha Berach imotenu mikol habracha. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
So as those who have been around and not on vacation for this summer are probably aware, this summer, rather than using this slot to talk about the Torah portion, we are doing a short series on the somewhat wordy topic of lesser known but still great American Jewish leaders. And so every week we're trying to talk about someone who we think maybe some of us don't know about, or to learn a little bit more about someone you might know about. So this week's leader is Rita Levi Montalcini. Show of hands, have you heard of her? All right, amazing, we have an expert in the room. This is great. So our story, Rita's story, begins in April of 1908 when she was born in Turin, Italy. Like many Italian Jews, her parents traced their roots in Italy back to the time of the Roman Empire. Rita was one of 4 children, 3 sisters, including her twin sister and a brother, and her dad was an engineer, and her mom was an artist. And she and her siblings sort of all drifted into a related field to one of those 2 fields, as you'll hear about. She was interested in writing, but as a teen, after she watched a good friend die of stomach cancer, she decided that she wanted to go into medicine. This was a hard thing to pull off, not just because she was a teenager in the 1920s and a woman, but also because her father specifically was very opposed to this. He thought that going to college for Rita or for her sisters would hurt their chances of finding a husband, and so he didn't think it was a good call. As it turns out, in her case, he was sort of right. She didn't end up getting married, and she talked a lot later in life about how she had had a really good life, and she had lots of friends and family, and she was happy with that choice. But that comes later. She persuaded him eventually that she wanted to be a doctor, and she left for medical school. She graduated summa cum laude in 1936, having also acquired an interest in what we now call neurobiology. She was specifically really interested in how nerves worked, how they grew, where they came from, particularly in the embryo. And she, after graduation, immediately began researching the nervous system as a research assistant. Her professors and her peers understood her to be at the beginning of what was sure to be a very promising research career. But she was in Italy right before World War II. In 1938, her brilliant research career was seriously threatened because Mussolini passed laws that barred Jews and other minority groups from holding professional jobs. A less determined person would likely have given up, but Rita set up a laboratory in her house. She had read about another scientist who did that, and she continued her research on nerve growth using chicken eggs. Her mentor, who had also been fired because he was Jewish, joined her in the research in her home laboratory. When eggs became scarce because of the war, Rita began bicycling around the area she lived in, asking random neighbors for chicken eggs so that she could continue her work. In 1943, her family was forced to flee Turin because the Nazis had invaded. They hid under false identities in Florence until the city was liberated in 1944, at which point she volunteered her medical services to the Allied forces, and she served as a doctor for refugees. This alone would be a remarkable story, but in 1944, Rita's career was only beginning, and of course, we have not gotten to the part of the story that lets us talk about her in a summer series about American Jews. So, in 1945, when the war ended, Rita and her family were able to return to Turin, and she continued her research on nerves in 1946 on the merits of 2 articles she had published about her research in international journals. Her research, which, remember, had been completed in her house in hiding during World War II. She was invited to Washington University in St. Louis as a 1-semester research fellow. She so impressed the folks in St. Louis that she was rapidly offered a research associate position, which she held for 30 years, during which time her life took place both in Missouri and in Italy, where most of her family still was, and she came to hold dual Italian-American citizenship. Rita is most famous for discovering something called the nerve growth factor, which I'm guessing there are people in this room who could explain much more precisely than me, but I'll give it a shot and refer out to them at the Oneg. So the nerve growth factor is an insulin-like protein which regulates the growth, development, and maintenance of sympathetic and embryonic sensory neurons. It helps nerves grow. And she discovered that it existed and how it was working. Her research was foundational to our current understanding of how cells and nerves grow, and it has been extremely important for scientists who study and aim to cure cancer and also neurological diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. She won the Nobel Prize for her work in 1986, and she won a lot of other prizes too, which I will not list here, but I encourage you to go home and read about. She didn't stop there. She continued her research throughout her life, which was very long. In 2009, at the age of 100, she became the longest living Nobel Prize winner, and she gave an interview to the magazine Nature about what it was like to continue to work every day in her hundreds, and how she felt that she was sharper than she was when she was 20 because she knew more at that point. In addition to her research, in 2001, she was appointed to the position of Senator for Life by the President of Italy, and she used her role to, amongst other things, advocate for funding and support for the sciences. She died in 2012 at the age of 103, having given a ton to the world. So I encourage you, we had a lot of fun learning a little bit about her as we were thinking about this, and there's a lot. She gave interviews. She was a very cool lady. So we hold her in our thoughts today as we continue thinking about what it is to believe that we can all make a difference in the world and follow our dreams and connect to one another. And with that in mind, we continue with the Aleinu, a prayer about making a difference in the world and connecting to one another. It is on page 586. Please rise if you are able.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגופי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
In a moment, we will turn to the words of the mourner's Kaddish, and as a preface to that, we invite you to take a moment to look at one of the beautiful poems or more preceding the Kaddish, starting on page 592. This week, as a community, we're remembering a number of folks. As I read the name of someone who you are here remembering, it's our custom here, if you'd like, to invite you to rise in body or in spirit when you hear the name of a person that you're here to say Kaddish for. After I read the names here, I'll leave a moment for you to add a name if there's a name of someone you're saying Kaddish for who I did not read aloud, or if you need to correct the pronunciation on a name, to do that. This week, we offer condolences to Tony Nalker on the death of his father, David Nalker. We also name these individuals whose families are in Shloshim, marking the 30 days or less since their death. Robert Gold, father of Michael Gold. Alan Cohn, brother of Susan Hale. Harry Robert Bub Grossman, father of Matthew Grossman. Nancy Rome, mother of Brian Rome. Walter Scherf, brother of Lorraine Wadiska. And we also name these individuals whose yahrzeit, the anniversary of their death, falls this week. Elsie Adler, Barbara Allen, Lily Barton, Reuben Ben-Hoam, Israel Berman, Hermione Kaplan, Connie Cohen, Andrew Karimsky, Herman Fisher, Bill Flathman, Gerald J. Goldman, Nathan Gurin, Richard Harmon, Ruth Hochstein, David Honigstock, Joel Jacknow, Louise Kalish, Lena Cass, Nam Katz, Eleanor Kittiver, Norma Kosarin, Lillian Kramer, Lily Crew, Sylvia Latkin, Harry Marcus, Edna Wallenberger Mayer, Barbara Mitchell, Robert Modlinger, Jacob Murav, Judy Perlstein, Sarah C. Petrone, Julia Rabinovitz, Jean Roberts, Ricardo Rosenblatt, Lori Rubin, Anita Sachs, Rosalie Sauber, Doug Schneiderman, Gregory Sroy, Frederick H. Smith, Irvin Smith, Phyllis Smith, Simon Smogger, Diane Sobel, Henry Stock, Eva Stock, David Strassler, Peter Torrey Tossig, Edwin J. Whitman, Samuel Winarski, Ora Winograd, and Saul Zimmerman. If you have a name to add, or if you would like to correct the pronunciation of a loved one's name, please do so as my hand moves around the room. We rise as one community in solidarity with our mourners and turn to the Mourners' Kaddish, which is on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi, ve'omad yivrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael b'gala uv'izman kariv v'yimru Yehei Shmei Rabba Mivarach Le'olam Olmei Almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal Shmei d'Kudasha B'richu Leila min kol birhata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'hayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom bin romav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel and all the world, to which we say, Amen. Please be seated. And we're now pleased to call up, who's already here, Amy Beckman, to bring greetings and announcements on behalf of the board.
Thank you very much. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you, Rabbi Stein and Cantor Rhodes, for leading us in another lovely, lovely Shabbat service tonight. I also want to send out a special thank you to Joan and Geraldine and Michael for helping us understand better the importance of what we can do here at TRS and also in our own lives to contribute to the important area of our sustainability of our planet. We can all do small things. Our native garden is not a small thing here at TRS, but it was thanks to terrific generosity, particularly from Joan, that we are able to celebrate it and honor it tonight. And on your way out tonight, if you don't make it down to the garden, which we encourage everyone to at some point, if not tonight, you can just take a look outside the doors at our beautiful native honeysuckle that are growing up the sides of our Mishkan outer walls. So please enjoy it and get inspired to bring some of this education and interest home with you as well. It has been a night of learning. Rabbi Stein, thank you for sharing such interesting information about this wonderful Jewish scientist. And we're learning about neural connections and our biology. It's just been a great evening. The announcements always like to draw people's attention to the wonderful programs and activities we have going on here at Temple, so let me call out a few. We have our summer limud going on right now, and it is the upcoming one is next Thursday night on choosing an ethical life. Please look at your connection or e-letter for more information about that. Remember that August 22nd is we close registration for the High Holy Days. So if you haven't registered yet for the High Holy Days, please do that promptly. And related to the High Holy Days, we have, of course, our ritual of Tashlik, and we have instituted, of course, the reverse Tashlik. This year, it will be on September 18th at 2 p.m. We call it a reverse Tashlik because it's an opportunity to clean out our local streams. And you'll also be learning more about that as we get closer to that date. Once again, Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and have a restful and peaceful rest of your Shabbat. Thank you.
Amy, I'm not sure if those are your first announcements post-presidency. Second. Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you on behalf of all of us for 2 years of incredible leadership. And also to Lynn Lotenberg, who is our current president, who's here tonight. So we got all the presidents in the house. Yeah. We continue with the Kiddush. on page 123, and I invite you to please rise.
Oh, and Amy, we have a Kiddush cup if you want one. Welcome to it. Awesome.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'vratzon inchilanu. Zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'charta, ve'otanu kidashta, v'kohamim, v'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava u'vratzon, inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. Hi. May I get this too to put back for me? Thank you very much. So we conclude tonight with these words of seeing from where we came and where we are going. Hopefully you are familiar with this song, Harry Belafonte, We Are From the Fire. I've changed some of the words at the end, taken creative license to say that we are going back to the garden and we've come from the garden. So I hope you'll join us. We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, going in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. Oh, so is life. Oh, so is life. Oh, so is life. Oh, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See one another clearly. Do we know who we are? We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. We come from the garden, living in the garden. Go back to the garden, turn the world around. We come from the garden, living in the garden. Go back to the garden, turn the world around. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. Sorry, say it again.
You don't have to return them.
And though it's less directly on your way out, we do invite you to join us for Oneg on the terrace outside this away if you would like.
Outside the sanctuary terrace.
Yeah.
So Oneg, yes. Shabbat shalom. It's so lovely to have you.
They're remote people, so it's really great to see everybody.
So glad that you're here.
Yeah.